Welcome, my friends and fellow warriors, to another episode of the Mental Warrior podcast, where it's our goal around here to help you win the war in your mind. Because when you win the war in your mind, you live the battle, you win the battle for your life. This is raw and uncut and edited right here. Any mistakes we make, we don't edit them out. We just keep going. But it's our goal with this podcast is to create an army of millions and millions of mental warriors because the world needs mental warriors now more than ever. So I'm your host, Zach, and whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on all podcast platforms, I really appreciate you checking this out. And if I can only help one mental warrior, or if I can only create one mental warrior, then the time and effort that goes into this podcast is completely worth it. And I'm very thankful to have the skills and the talents, or I'd like to think I have the skills and talent. You could be the judge of that. But I would like to think I have the skills and the talent to put together this podcast. So I'm very thankful for that. And right now is the thankful time of the year, one of my favorite times of the year. See, I got my sweater on. It's sweater weather. Got my cardigan on. Got my what's that guy's name? The old guy on TV with the sweater, Mr. Rogers. Get my Mr. Rogers on. But Thanksgiving is this week, and I've just been thinking, reflecting, and I had a thought of, why isn't every day Thanksgiving? We should treat every day like Thanksgiving. So that's why the name of this episode is Why Every Day is Thanksgiving. Because why do we only eat this type of turkey once a year? We only eat stuffing once a year. Maybe you only see your Aunt Liberal Carol or your Uncle George who's conservative and argue with them in politics once a year. Like, why do we only do that once a year? Why do we only get together with friends once a year? Why is there only one day of the year we're supposed to be thankful? We should really be thankful every day of the year. And that's the key thing about this episode is I want to talk about, why we should be more thankful, why you should be more thankful every day, and how the brain actually works and how everything works, because there's a science behind how the more grateful you are, the more gratitude that you have for what you have, not only the happier will you be, but the more that you'll get. Because the more you give, the more you get, the happier you are. So that's really why every day should be Thanksgiving. We should be thankful for every day because it's important to be thankful and show gratitude because it just makes you happier and it makes you appreciate what you have versus what you don't have. Because a lot of times we focus on the negative and the bad things and what we don't have, which takes away from the effort and the focus and the joy of focusing on what we do have. And in life, you need to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. So if you're focusing on the negative stuff and what you don't have, you'll never really be able to appreciate and be thankful for what you do have. And that the more gratitude you show for what you do have, the more of that you'll get. Because the saying, you get what you give, is true. The more you give, the happier you are. The more that you take, the more miserable you are. Have you ever noticed that? People who are always taking, people who are, I hate to say cheap, but people are frugal, people are cheap. People just have this overall attitude of being a taker. They're usually more miserable, less happy, as opposed to someone with the abundance mindset who's always giving away, always trying to help people. They give you their shirt off their back. They're generally happier because they're getting more and they're giving more. And it's really interesting science, which I wanted to get into, is the how this actually works with your brain and how scientifically it's proven that the happier you are, the more gratitude you have, the more that you give, the happier you are, because it sets off the frequencies and the triggers in your brain waves. So our brains are kind of like cars where you have neutral, you have drive, you have the different gears you can shift. Or our brains have that too. We have what's called brain waves. So we have like alpha wave, beta wave, theta waves, all these different types of waves, and our thoughts help create these brain waves, and then the brain wave turns it into liquid that secretes out into the body, and then that's why our thoughts, we feel them physically, emotionally, and mentally. I did a previous episode about this, about your thoughts and stuff. You should check it out. But I wanted to specifically talk about the brain waves and how, if you think about an ocean, like we literally have liquids in our head. So if you think about waves in the ocean, how that works, imagine that in your brain, how we have these liquids in our brain, and these brain waves are creating these liquid waves in our head, right? So when you have certain types of emotions, you have positive ones, it can trigger your brain into the alpha waves. And when you're in the alpha waves, that's when you're in a gratitude state. Like that's the state your brain's in when you're meditating, which is why meditation is so important, because it helps you trigger those brain waves. So you're in the alpha state, because the different brain waves, I forget what they're all called. You can look it up, but it starts at the top with the positive highest frequency. And then each brain wave goes down, and your negative and positive thoughts dictate your brain waves. Whether, think about a giant chart, plus 100, minus 100. Those are like your brain waves. So you can be at neutral, and then at the top's the alpha. Let's say you're at 100, and then negative 100. I forget what it's called, but when you have negative thoughts, when you're depressed, when you feel shameful, angry, your body's low is vibrating at a lower frequency, which creates these lower waves. And you can shift your way out of these states and move your way up from negative 100 to 100 just through your thoughts. Now, there's different thoughts that rank up higher on the scale, but at the very top of the scale, let's say at the 100%, plus 100% is gratitude. So when you're feeling grateful for what you have, your brain is switching gears, right, through the different waves till it gets to the top, which is the alpha wave. And that's when you're in that meditative like state, that happy state. You're not stressed out, you're not anxious. Your brain is in relaxed mode, your brain is in happy mode. So the more grateful you are, the more positive thoughts you have, the more you'll be in the higher echelon of the brain waves, and the happier you'll be, the more fulfilled you'll be. So when you're feeling negative, it's the opposite. You'll always be at the bottom. You'll be at the negative 100. You'll be at the bottom of the frequency chart. There's an actual chart. I forget what it's called, but it visually shows you all of this, where the different states of your state of being, pretty much, and how the different brain waves work. And it's super interesting stuff. And, I might sound like crazy, or this might be hard to follow. Hopefully it's not hard to follow, but if you would just go and Google and study different brain waves, how they work, and how we actually can control our brain waves and make things shift, that would put things in perspective of why you need to be more grateful, why you should try meditating, why you should try journaling, because these things put you in the right state of mind and keep you in a higher brainwave frequency, so that you want to ride the wave. You want to create your own waves and you want to ride them. Now you can create negative waves or positive waves, but that's kind of how you get out of, if you're feeling low. That's why you say you should write down 3 things every day you're grateful for. Start a gratitude journal, because these thoughts will literally get you from the bottom to the top, or it'll literally change your mood, your emotions, your viewpoint of things. So the more grateful you are, the happier you are. The happier you are, the more productive you are. The more productive you are, the more successful you are, and so on and so forth. Not only that, the more people you help, hopefully, the more people they help. And it's never ending. Everything's connected and tied together, whether we realize it or not, between our thoughts, our emotions, what we eat, our brain waves, how we treat people, how we live our lives. Everything's tied together, and the brain really ties everything together. So it's super cool to find out that these brain waves, the alpha brain waves, is at the top. That's why it's called the alpha. And you can literally get yourself out of a bad mood and change your brain waves from the bottom. Remember that chart from the negative 100, you could slowly go up negative 90, negative 80, negative 70, 0, plus 10, plus 20, till you're at the very top and you're at 100. And then you're super grateful, you're happy, you're just focusing on what you have, what you don't have. And it just allows you to live a better quality of life and help other people. So it's super important that we treat every day like Thanksgiving. You should really take out more time of your day to think about what you're grateful for, what you have. Because when you focus on what you don't have, you're going to become unhappy and you're going to get more of that. When you focus on what you do have and you're happy, you're going to get more of that too. You'll be more successful and you'll get to be where you want to be. You'll get everything that you wanted. You just have to be grateful for what you have first and focus on what you have first and be thankful for everything. So hopefully this made sense. The biggest takeaway I would say is, besides being grateful, starting a gratitude journal, journaling, meditating, is to study the brain waves and look into how it works, because you can literally fix yourself. You can get yourself out of a bad mood. A lot of times we're in a rut, we're in a bad mood, you don't know how to get out of it, but you can get out of it. You just have to know how to do it. And that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm learning. So now that I see that it's possible, I'm trying to show other people how it works. But you kind of have to understand it for yourself. So this is kind of like a preview for the brain waves, your moods, how everything works. So I suggest you go and research the different brain waves and meditating, the alpha waves, and the benefits of being grateful and showing gratitude. So that's it for this week's episode. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much, or maybe fast the day before, day after, and you eat as much as you want. Go argue with your Aunt Kathy about being a liberal. Go argue with your Aunt Fred about being conservative. Go see your friends. Now's a good time of year to do all that. But make sure moving forward that we treat every day like Thanksgiving and just show the world how you're grateful and what you're grateful for. So that's it. And I'll see you next time.